Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lucifer, the latest episode of Supergirl, as well as the latest episode of The Gifted. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Lucifer, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Supergirl, and or skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of The Gifted. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Lucifer. An amazing episode. I love what they did because it's like, well, because this episode immediately has you go, okay, wait, where does this take place in the timeline? I thought immediately we start at the beginning and then we cut to it like immediately after, like it hits the introduction and then boom, boom, we skip to present day. But I was like, oh, is this all going to take place in the past? It's like, no, it went from past to possibly present, might be more like season 2 to 2-ish, but I mean, nevertheless, that's me. Like, let's break things down. Basically, this has to deal with Linda's ex-husband. Husband at the time, well, obviously ex-husband because they were separated for like 2 years. I did not see that twist coming. It was like, oh, your wife's in all. It's like, oh, how do I look? And he walks in, and I was like, it's Linda. I was like, oh my god, that was such a good reveal. It's like because they didn't reveal it too soon. They waited to the right moment. They're like, oh my god, that because it made you think like it was just her. It was some random person Lucifer ended up having an affair with. But essentially, Reese is a reporter, and basically to get his revenge against Lucifer. Originally, he was going to confront Lucifer. He saw who Lucifer was, and he just got pissed at him. Oh, he's such a playboy, rich guy, douchebag. And Lucifer, not realizing this whole situation revolved around him, was telling the guy, hey, you should try and get your revenge. In particular, what makes this interesting too, this is Lucifer back in season 1. It's like almost like a cutout excerpt from him working with Chloe in season 1. And so Reese is there and he's looking at Lucifer handle things. I even love that Chloe's like, okay, yeah, of course we handle things professionally. Lucifer, wear gloves. Like, what is this for? You know, wearing gloves like you always do at crime scenes. It's like, oh yeah, and he looks to Reese and it's like, oh, I don't. Obviously, everyone in the department had nothing but glowing things to say about Lucifer. It's like, well, guy's a little weird, but I love him. Yeah, he's such a good guy. Except for Dan, of course. And they brought it up. Dan was like, yeah, I know it's him eating my pudding. It's like, that has to be like an inside joke. Because I don't remember that ever being a thing until this season, like finding out Dan's so into pudding. He's just like, he has to be the one that's eating my pudding. Ain't no one, like, because I don't remember that from season 1 or season 2 about him eating pudding. Maybe there was lines or dialogues I just don't remember. But nevertheless, that was just kind of a little interesting thing. But initially, Brett witnessed some dealings and stuff like that. He's like, oh, I got Lucifer. He's up to something. And it's like, oh, you bought edible. He's like, are these sex toys? Yes, edible sex toys. The lady tied up to the bed. She's like, I want to do this. And Lucifer's like, oh, I got to go help solve a crime, but you're going to be fine here. She's like, right. He's like, oh yeah, can you help me a little bit? He puts the cloth back in her mouth. I just like, I love the twists like that. I also appreciated Maze like beating him up a little bit, because an interesting thing too is this kind of put things in perspective too. Maze has not done that in a long time, because even Lucifer's like, oh, Maze, yeah, she was like, she's kind of a bit overprotective, like, right. It's like, Maze hasn't been like that in a very long time. Like, she doesn't hang around Lucifer like that because she kind of has her own life that she's like, not since season 1 we've not seen Maze, like, because obviously her and Lucifer had their falling out. Obviously they've gotten better, but it's the situation where Maze has got her own life much like Lucifer does, so she doesn't hang around him as much anymore. So that's kind of interesting to me. Like, I didn't even think about that, because I was like, yeah, when you actually think about it, like, she was super protective of him in season 1, and you don't see hide or hair of her around like that anymore. So it's like, I mean, like I said, obviously it was the whole Midvale and Lucifer treating her like a pawn in that, like, their little war against each other. So it's like, it's just an interesting little, and like, I appreciate that little throw in like there, and it's like, because it makes you see like that's not even the same Maze that we know now. So just more aspects of just how different she is from how she was at the beginning of the series. But eventually, Reese had to let things go, because it's like, oh, no matter how much he's so annoying, he's such a jerk. but man, he is super charming. And the fact of the matter is, it was so beautifully done. And he was going to give up on this whole thing until he saw Lucifer's devil face. Then he went to Linda, try to warn her and everything. And I love how they did it. They did such a beautiful job with this, because it's like, he's warning her about it. And she's like, you're crazy, you're crazy. And I'm like, that's so good, considering the fact is Linda is like the one normal human being that really knows the truth about Lucifer actually being Lucifer. But what I love too was like I brought up earlier, that like the cut to like a year later. So I would think it would be like 2 years, but I don't 100% know the time frame. I know Ella's there, but to be fair, that could still be season 2. I really don't know where in the time frame it is. They might have cut to present day. I don't know. But like, he spent the past year learning everything he could about Lucifer, Maze, Amenadiel, like everything, trying to figure out if Lucifer's vulnerable, like is there any way to hurt him? And it's like, oh, Amenadiel, did he get his powers back? Powers returned. It's like he did extra research. Like, how did you? It actually shows you in a weird way, no matter how much of a, like, it's good at his job. He legitimately is good at his job. And that was so interesting. And just for Lucifer and Chloe to kind of pop back up in his life like that. And he ended up confronting Linda about it. He ended up shooting Lucifer in front of Linda. And Linda's like, yeah, I know. He's like, what? It's like, yeah, I know about him being the devil. Like, he's actually a good... I was like, wow, his entire world turned upside down, because he's been working so hard to not prove it just to the world, but to prove it to Linda that this guy is a terrible guy. Like, the whole... like, that he's the devil. And it's like, wait, you're telling me you know and you accept him? And that pushed him off the deep end to the point he got the killer in this episode, which I got to learn that actor's name. I see him so many different things. But he, you know, his whole shtick in this episode was basically how he killed people who weren't true to themselves. Like, one particular victim was like a vegan who actually owned like a cattle ranch or something like that. Like, people who lie. And, Reese actually sent him after Lucifer, which he didn't. He was going to poison Lucifer, but then he started talking to Lucifer, and Lucifer just swept him off his feet. And sadly, another girl ended up drinking the drink and died. And Reese blamed it all on Lucifer, because he's like, I need it to be your fault, because ultimately it was his, because he set everything in motion. Yes, Lucifer had sex with your wife, but to go to the extremes that he did, because it kind of shows you what kind of personality he has, because he went through all of this because it was all for Linda. Linda literally said, we've been separated for 2 years, and you're up here sending me these messages. At first, it's like, Lucifer gave me something you could never do. He was spontaneous. He didn't ask anything of me. And it is also like, he was so busy with work and everything that's why things didn't work out. But for him, he's like, I don't get it. She likes you. And it was kind of sweet too. She's like, Lucifer? Yeah, he's actually a good guy. He's my friend. And you see that look of Lucifer, she's like, oh, Linda, like, Dr. Martin, like, you're talking. Oh, that looks like some super sweet words coming, you know? And for him, it's like, you're the devil, and yet you either way she looks at you, like, you're important to her. She cares about you. And it's like, yeah. And I also appreciate it really quickly, because it popped in my mind, because I really quickly thought of Charlotte, and I love it being like stepmother, sexual partner, whatever, and it's like WTF at the bottom, because he couldn't figure out the relationship. But for Lucifer, it's like, I guess she accepts me because I told her the truth, like, that I've been open, because I think that's another thing too, is from the very beginning, Lucifer has been open to everyone. Not everyone realizes he's telling the truth, obviously, but Linda was the first person he revealed his true face to, like, obviously, aside from criminals, which is another thing too. He doesn't, even in second season, I don't think he ever did that anymore, did he? I think it's because there is a part of him that was scared to do that, because I think eventually he didn't want to do that around Chloe anymore, because he was afraid of how she might react. I think that might have played a role in all of that, because he never did that anymore, revealing his devil face to criminals. Like, on occasion he would, but I feel like he did it a lot more frequently in season 1, but maybe that's just my imagination. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But to him, he felt like he needed, like, he thought, okay, I'll open up to Linda, and he did. but it didn't fix everything. Because Linda is like, okay, it wasn't just you, it was me. Like, it's a good thing we're separate, we can move on. But he couldn't accept that. He's like, no, I love you, Linda. It kind of shows you he has a very obsessive personality. And to be fair, we don't really know him and her in their relationship. We never got to see it. But if this was any signs of it, it's just, it wasn't a good relationship. Just how obsessive he was. I mean, for one, it's like he always put work first. He wasn't there for her. That's why the whole Lucifer thing happened. And besides, it was a situation of they were separated. And that's why him and Dan kind of bonded. He was like, oh yeah, just because you're separated doesn't mean you're divorced. So it just kind of, also the actor who plays Reese, I've seen him in other stuff too. I got to learn that actor's name as well, but oh, it was so good. And ultimately the killer caught up with him because it's like, you saying Lucifer's the liar? You're the liar, manipulating people, me, and trying to kill someone who's like, Lucifer tells the truth, but he has. That's always been his thing. He doesn't lie. Obviously that has come up this season too, but it's like more often than not, especially back then, Lucifer never told a lie. He was always truthful about everything, especially when it came to Chloe. But ultimately it led to him dying from the poison. He's like, oh, the fact of the matter is I caught the killer. Maybe it'll make up for what I did. And then the moment he's starting to die, I'm like, you're going to hell. It's going to restart everything, isn't it? And it's like, yes. The entirety of the episode, I mean, obviously you could argue that it's like, oh, well, this is it happening. But because the whole aspect of hell, like you get stuck in your, like that moment of regret, the biggest regret of your life. You live it over and over again. And I love that because Lucifer points that out. It's like, going to hell, I don't send you to hell. I don't send people to hell. I might be the devil and everything. I watch over hell. Doesn't mean I control how it operates. It's kind of an automatic system. You go to hell because of your own guilt. And to him, he's like, oh, he thinks, oh, after all the stuff I did, like maybe Linda will love me now, because that's what he ultimately wanted. It is kind of interesting, too, that Lucifer actually found out. It took Lucifer the entire episode to like, oh, so I'm the piece of crap that was sleeping with your wife, and he thought it was so funny. I mean, also because it's like, I guess it also brings up an interesting thing of like, how long would they, because in this grand scheme of the show, they didn't sleep together that long, but granted, in between episodes, there's no telling how much time could pass. Like easily like a week to 2 weeks could pass, or maybe a few days, few hours, really depends, so how much time frame passes between each episode. I could swear it was like by the third or fourth episode, they weren't sleeping together anymore. So this that beginning half had to take place somewhere in that time frame, but nevertheless, because that's kind of interesting to me, like the way she's like, oh, Lucifer doesn't expect anything from him. I'm like, that's kind of interesting considering the fact is y'all quickly stopped sleeping with each other just because it kind of got in the way of his treatment and everything. So, but nevertheless, I love that, like the moment he died, I was like, this whole thing is you experiencing it in hell, aren't you? I was like, that sucks. Because he legitimately thought he could. But no, because ultimately it's what Lucifer said. It's your guilt. No matter how much on the surface, he still felt guilty because when he was struggling with Linda, he ended up pushing her. She ended up getting hurt. And he realizes he has also guilt for like the innocent lady that died, that his jealousy got the best of him, that his obsession got the best of him. And it's such a beautiful, like, I appreciate it because it's like a one-off episode. It's like, it has no overarching bearing on the show. At least, I don't know. I guess it's getting us a little more acquainted with how hell worked. Because we've only gotten like one instance back in season 2 for the guy that poisoned Chloe. That was like the last time we had that whole experience with hell was that. So this is giving us an even bigger reach of like what it looks like. And because the crazy thing is of how much of it has a connection to one of our characters. It's like, we never knew, like, has it ever come up before that Linda's been married and stuff? To be fair, she's been separated this entire time. So it's like, even before she met Lucifer, like she was already separated. So, because that was in like the early stages of like their therapy and stuff like that. It's just, I cannot tell you just how awesome this episode was, because legitimately it's so fascinating because it is simply a one-off episode. It had no bearings over anything else. Like I said, it could in the future, this could just be like, oh, this is an interesting little tale we could tell you. So whether it have bearings on the future or not, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the sinner, man. Maybe it seems like it's not connected, but ultimately it will be. I mean, I'm very interested to see what this could mean going forward, because because this also gives us little more experience with Linda to understanding her whole situation, because Linda's a character You know, a lot of our characters in the show, we don't really get to know a lot about them. Because there's something else, too, that, like, Chloe said. Because Chloe can deconstruct Lucifer. It's like all the sleeping, the drinking, and laughing and jokes, all the smiles. It's like a cover-up for all the stuff that Lucifer, whatever happened to him in his past, kind of messed him up bad, and all that's a facade. What Teresa's like, you give him too much credit. And she told him, it's like, you don't give him enough. Because the fact of the matter is, we as a people who watch the show know that Lucifer actually is a good guy. Linda sees what he's done, what he's capable of. She knows that he's capable of love because he's in love with Chloe. So, but it's just because of Reese's own situation. And it's something Linda touched on. His inability to see or listen to anything. He never took the time to listen to Linda. She was like, let's sit down, you know. I mean, understandably so, because like before it's a situation, you know, she's a therapist and everything. And so she'd psychoanalyze him a little bit. He's like, don't try and analyze me and stuff like that. But still, it's like he could have sat down and listened and understand, you know, because, you know, everyone had nothing but good things to talk about Lucifer, even though he is the devil. You know, Chloe values him as a partner and obviously more. Like I said, it was just fascinating how this episode was done. Bravo. I'd be very interested to see more episodes like this going forward, but I don't know, it kind of sets this episode apart. Like I said, just kind of almost like a one-off, you know. So like I said, ultimately it is a little sad. I wish things kind of ended differently for Reese. I was hoping his story was like, things really took a turn when he got the killer to come after Lucifer. I was like, oh, but the moment the killer was like, oh, kind of charmed by Lucifer, I was like, oh, I guess that backfired. But the moment that girl died, that's really when things set him up. Because like I said, he was trying to alleviate his own guilt and pain about what happened and blame it on Lucifer because he needed someone to take all the blame in the situation, because it was really like, you know, because Lucifer said it too. It's like, people blame me for all the evil in the world. You guys do it yourself. Everything that happened wasn't Lucifer's fault. At any point in time, Reese could have stopped, but he was so consumed by jealousy, by his obsession, by his anger, that he couldn't see anything more, and it cost him. He is in hell. Once again, too, it is an aspect of Lucifer's like, the door is open, but people are just so consumed by their own guilt. They subconsciously, they believe they deserve to be there, so that's why they can't leave. They'll keep living that over and over and over again. So also shows that Hell's situation hasn't quite changed. So once again, where the Centerman falls in that category, which we have not gotten back to yet, which I keep bringing up, but maybe that's a situation that is going to play a lot heavier in the second half of the season, because we have not gotten back to that yet either. I'm curious why they decided to do it like that. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of like that with a lot of other like shows that are very crime drama like. They have like individual episodes. It's like every couple episodes you get the main overarching story, but it's been a while since they cut back to that. Like that episode about Pierce and Lucifer talking about that was like a good couple episodes ago, and we haven't got back to it yet though. I also don't know how long this season is. I would assume it's longer than last season. It seems like they're making each subsequent season longer. The first season was like 13 episodes. Last season was 18 maybe. So this one should be longer, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see, because I haven't looked into it at all. I don't want to know, you know, so I'm very interested to see like how what the next episode involves. Actually, I got a glimpse of it. Not too much about what's going to go down in the episode, but a little bit, and I'm very interested to see what goes down to it. Obviously, I won't talk about it in case you didn't see the preview, but yeah. I cannot praise this episode enough. It's such a good episode, dude. And now moving on to this week's episode of Supergirl. A fantastic episode. This is like a really good episode because it's like, it kind of pulls back from a lot of the superhero stuff. It still plays a part, but more so than anything, it's just kind of like a very character building episode. And I always really appreciate that, because obviously Alex is going through her breakup with Maggie, and obviously like Kara is still dealing with the whole Mon-El situation. That's not easy to kind of come over. And obviously they butt heads a lot. And that's an aspect about the show, like in this particular episode too, that I really like, because I've not experienced that personally, but I have seen that too, like two sisters going in, because I do have two older sisters who've been in that same situation. Oh, I hate you. I love you the one minute, can't stand you the next. It's that type of thing. Obviously, their situation is very unique, because for Alex, it's like, my life was totally normal, and then you came and everything fell apart. I have to be responsible for you. The fact is, matter of time you popped up, my dad disappeared. It's like, that's not Kara's fault, but it's just like, you know, she's a teenager. Alex is frustrated because her once perfect life is now falling apart, and she just needs an outlet to blame it. And it's just like, Kara's there. It's just like, it's just like I said, there are two teenage girls who are just like occupying the same space. Like they're going to butt heads. It's just that's a sister thing to do. It's just a family thing to do. So it's not to be not unexpected. But what really got me was like the nature of this story. Like what ended up bringing them closer together was solving a murder. Kenny's in particular did not see that coming. Like him and Kara getting close and everything. I'm like, oh, he kind of likes you. And it's sad too because Kenny was our only friend. Like she was kind of the loner at the school, but Kenny, he was there. Because even Alex is just kind of like, she's with the popular crowd. Like, she tries to pretend like she doesn't know cars. Like, oh my God, why am I so adopted? Why my mom adopt her? Oh my God, yeah, I know. Like, it's crazy, right? Even to the point that they would constantly compete. It's like, oh, you suck at history. I know history. Like, oh, you're trying to climb up this rope. Oh yeah, can't keep up. And I'm just like the back and forth, or just the animosity between them. But first, they exposed their teacher from having like a very messed up relationship with one of his students, that student being one of Alex's friends, which it seems like that relationship was forever broken up because of that. Because it's like, but Alex is like, what he's doing is wrong. He's a grown up taking advantage of you. And there's a possibility he killed Kenny. She really got pissed at Alex too, because it's like, oh, he got arrested and everything, which, yeah, he deserved to be arrested, but it's just like, you're in that young mindset of feeling like, well, no, this person loves me, they're not taking advantage of me, they're not hurting me, it doesn't matter, they are taking advantage of you, because your brain isn't even fully developed yet, And that was someone that was like a really good friend of hers, but I guess it's like, if something like that can break up your friendship, then maybe it just wasn't made to be. I mean, who knows? Maybe eventually as she got older, she's like, I do realize what you did for me, so thank you. I mean, like at the same time, it's like, I'm protecting you from a potential killer. Turns out it wasn't him after all. It ended up being the sheriff. Kind of saw that coming, but kind of didn't. Like, I don't know, just something seemed off about the sheriff. Side note too, like, I feel like I recognize that actor from some stuff. I just can't place him. Also, really quickly, side note, I think they did a fantastic job casting the actresses to play young Kara and Alex, especially the actress who plays Alex. It's weird how similar she looks to me, like how she looks, not to me, to the actress who plays Alex. They look very similar. They look like they could be related. It's like crazy resemblance. But you also see it with Kara and the younger actress who played younger Kara, but still, it was almost like looking at like legit like siblings in that in this episode. But when it came to the Alex's, but nevertheless, I also like that transition of like them piss at each other one night, and then it transitions of 10 years later, and then at the end of the episode, it kind of sweeps back around and comes back to present. I thought that was just kind of a nice way of handling that, but because this is one of those situations that kind of put things. Like, it's one of those things that kind of put things in perspective for Kara. Because for Kara, it's like, this place didn't feel like home. Because, like, it's like, because it's something she brought up with Kenny. Because Kenny was like, give her enough time. Her dad, whole situation with her dad, you're new in her life and everything. But it's like, my people are gone. I lost my parents. You would see me flipping out on everyone. It's just because that's what Kara kind of does. Like, any problem she kind of, like, stuff's inside me. She kind of like erupts later on because it's like she didn't ask for these powers. She didn't ask to come to this planet, but she's here now and she has these abilities, and all she wants to do is help people. She wants to help solve her friend's murder, so she wants to do good for her abilities like her cousin is. She wants to live with him, but I think it's an interesting thing because it does make you wonder 100% why did Clark do that? Why didn't he burn? I guess for him, it's like, no, like he wanted her to have some, like, I guess more so because it's like he wanted, I got it. I'm an idiot. It's because Clark wanted her to have the same experience as him. He became the man he is now because of the parents he grew up with, because he was there with humans. They taught him everything, and it made him become like the Earth's biggest champion. So I think he was hoping the same thing for Kara. He probably never knew whether Kara was going to follow in his like footsteps and become a superhero too. But at the very least, he wanted her to have that foundation because it's like a great family. The Kents took him in and made him the man he is, helped forge him into the man he is. Especially, you definitely see that if you've ever seen Smallville, which plays a part in this, which I'll get to soon enough. But I think the same thing applies to Kara. But it's just like, when you're that age and it's like you're all alone, it's like, of course you want to be with the one person whose family who is like, the only foundation you have. So it's still an aspect about Kara that you can tell she's not 100% like thinking of that family 100% as hers. It's still a little disconnect because she has yet to ever call, like, I don't think, even of course of this series, I don't think she's ever referred to Eliza as her mom. Anytime she talks to Eliza, it's like, oh, Eliza, but she still loves her like a mom. It's just, I feel like there might have been something in season 1 or season 2 where she referred to her as mom, but it's like they are her family, you know. It's just like, because the difference between Kara and Clark is Clark never knew his parents, so he never has that Kryptonian connect. He doesn't remember Krypton. He was a baby. Kara remembers Krypton. She remembers her family. So there's also another reason for that disconnect. It's like, you guys are great and everything, but you can never be my family. And it's something sweet that Kara says at the end of the episode I really appreciate. Is the fact is, she's never felt at home, but Alex makes her feel that. Like, you know, it's because it's like, they have each other. Like, that mystery, working together on that brought them closer together. Because it's like, yeah, Alex might have kind of acted like Kenny didn't exist. But for her, it's like, no, like, he helped me out with calculus, and he could have told people, but he didn't. He kept it to himself, you know? So it just kind of shows you how much of a cool dude Kenny was, especially because the fact is he knew who Kara was, and which touched her too, because it's like, he wanted to kiss me, but I didn't. I just kind of got weirded out because she wasn't used to it. But she's like, if he was here now, I'd kiss him in front of everybody, because it's like, he knew who she was. He saw, like, he caught up, like, in his telescope, he saw her flying into the air, and he's like, and he knew who she was, and he accepted her. It didn't matter. He didn't think of any less of her. He didn't think, you know, still thought she was amazing. So it's a bittersweet thing, you know. It's also cool to see that she didn't have the flying down immediately. She had to hop until that moment where Alex and her were like on the bridge and were about to get run over, that she flew for the first time. So, but this is all stemming from why Kara stayed in the dark for so long, because it also plays into that, because it's like, well, for Kara, it's like she got warned by that agent who looked exactly like her mom. I was like, okay, how did that happen? I was like, that's weird. I was like, are we going to find out that's really her mom? It's like, that's kind of a weird thing. It's like, and I saw the car. I was like, it's freaking John, which I also appreciate the fact is that he drove there in John's car, which is immediately in my brain. I'm like, Kara can drive? I was like, well, yeah, she never really would need a reason to. Not only can she fly, but she'd be able to run super fast. Does she even really use, like, I don't think she ever uses her super, like running speed. Like, I think the only time she ever did that was in season 1 when she was helping Barry get back to Earth. I'm sure she dashes for it, but like just on her own running super speed, she never needs a reason to, because she could. That's also something I'm curious about. I would assume you can. I would assume they can fly faster than they can run. Both her and Clark. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But it was just kind of interesting. It's really sad that it took a tragedy to kind of bring them closer together. But it was also cool seeing like the makings of what they would be eventually. You know, it's like, I mean, it took John coming to her much later on in life for her to kind of go down that route of like, nah, I'm gonna be a cop. Like, she had no idea, because even now she's like, nah, I'm interested more in science and stuff like that. It's not till like she got like much older into her college years that John approached her about the whole, you know, working for her, him situation. So I would have, like, I can't remember if Eliza knew about the whole John situation. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen season 1. Because I was wondering, did she call John in? Well, because John was asked to look after her by Jeremiah to look after his family. So most likely he probably caught wind. Like, I don't know. I'd assume it had to be Eliza. But I wonder, did she tell him to come there to try and talk to her? Because obviously he took on the form of her mom because like he could read her mind. So it's like, this is the form that would kind of get her to listen the most, you know? So also really quickly, I brought it up earlier about the Smallville reference. I appreciated it because if you're familiar with Smallville, in this episode, it's like, oh yeah, Clark has his weird friend named Chloe who has his wall of weird. Chloe is one of Clark's best friends in the show Smallville. She had a whole wall about the like wall of weird. It basically mostly concerned about people with the whole meteor freak situation where people would get like kryptonite rocks and gain abilities from it. So there's that. It's interesting too that they would make that reference too, because it's like almost, because it's like acknowledging like Smallville, but that would kind of like, it wouldn't work out in this continuity because Jimmy and Chloe dated, and obviously Jimmy died in that continuity. But also the cool thing is that it's something I learned like after I watched the entirety of Smallville like a year or two, like 2 or 3 years ago, is that I think around 2009 maybe, or maybe it was like after Smallville ended in like in 2010 or 11, that Chloe was added to the comic books. Like there's she became a comic book character because she was specifically like a Smallville original character, but they subsequently added her in continuity. Because in certain, I think one of the instances she pops up later on is like she pops up as she's Jimmy's girlfriend. That's how she pops up in a story in later like versions. So I don't know if she's like fully continuity wise a character, but I think in one particular instance she definitely was. But she might have like a full blown part to play in the DC universe, or rather, like, Superman continuity. Like, I've not really read comic books, so I wouldn't know. So I just appreciated that little thing. I was like, and the mother's like, yeah, it has a friend named Chloe. It was like, well, the weird. I was like, I lost my shit, dude. It was so cool. It's kind of interesting, too, because you never got to see present-day Midvale, their hometown. It wasn't like, oh, they bumped into people, too. It was like, because the main focus was on the sisters. Like I said, nothing else. Like, that was the story from when they were kids, but the main focus is, like, repairing their relationship, having that camera, the telescope from Kenny, that the fact is they still got it, it's still in good condition. So, I mean, it's like the one thing that they've ever gotten for the fact is of like, hey, this is what, a prize for solving a case. So, like, it's the first time too that Kara went full blown with her abilities. Like, she flew off and was able to get to Alex, because she could obviously hear Alex calling out to her and stuff like that. Like, she's coming. She can, every breath you take, she can. It's like, I'm here, and Kara busts in and saves the day. So obviously, still skating around that whole like, oh, how did that happen? Yeah, he got knocked out. No one's gonna listen to it. He's a criminal. So. But it is, really quickly, it is something that Eliza I appreciate, like, what I loved to it about it at the beginning was Eliza being like, yeah, it's almost like, trying to, yeah, I mean, at least Alex isn't trying to pretend that she's okay. And Carl looks at her and it's just like, she's a mom. Moms see right through you. And it's like, I know what you're doing. You're pretending like you're okay. Which she's like, I am. For her, it's like, once again, I have to give up this whole Cara Danvers thing, because it's like, in her mind, it's like that whole human experience is making her weak, because it's like she needs to be 100% dedicated and focused on her job. And it's like, if she gets so caught up in human emotions and stuff like that, then she feels like that's going to make her weak and distract her from her job. Because that's the whole thing too, because Alex and her blew up at each other at the beginning of the episode, because Alex is like, you're telling me to talk when you haven't talked for the past 6 months. Like, you're trying to tell me that it's going to get better, but how am I going to believe that when I look at you? So it's just like, so, I mean, that was kind of partially just because Alex was drunk and just lashing out. It's just, I mean, and, Cara understands too, because it's like, she knows exactly what she's going through, That heartbreak is not the easiest thing to get through, but at the very least, at the end of the day, they have each other. And that's more than some people in their particular situations of heartbreak have, so they have each other to lean on. So, like I said, I brought it up last episode. I'm definitely curious to see, like, Alex going forward, like, especially, like, the potential of her and Maggie having to work together going forward, whether that will be a thing or not. But also, about Kara going forward, like, still debating this whole Kara and Supergirl situation. It's actually kind of interesting, because this kind of plays a role in a video that I filmed yesterday. Yeah, because it's Tuesday morning at the time we're recording this now. But the video's supposed to come out tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Basically, it's about the whole secret identity aspect, and I kind of talk about this to a certain extent. Obviously, I won't spoil the video for you. If you want to go, I'm shilling out my own stuff, and I'm usually not. I don't do that a lot, so I'm kind of terrible at it. So I do apologize. So if it sounds like a video that you might be interested in anyway, it's talking about the whole aspect of secret identities, like whether they play a big part in a lot of modern day superhero stuff or not. Which I bring up Arrowverse, it kind of does, but MCU it kind of doesn't. It's a whole thing. Like, if you're interested, the video will be up tomorrow, so give you something to look forward to, I guess. I don't know. But nevertheless, I doubt we'll ever kind of get any more of a look at this, because this is our first time really getting a very in-depth look at their lives and their relationship back when they were younger. Like, obviously growing, like, still, like I said, it's sisters. So obviously, like, siblings in general, not just sisters, but siblings in general are going to argue and still have problems. Like, I love the joking stuff at the end. It's like, I'm driving. It's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you almost crashed. It's like, it was a possum. It's like, I don't care. Like, before, I was kind of fine with it crashing, but it's like, hey, I want to live this time. It's like, okay, well, there's progress, so. Because I think season 1 is the last time we got a look at them at all when they were younger. Like, they were, like, I think it was, like, why Kara, like, because you got the back story of, like, why Kara started wearing glasses, that whole thing, Because it was back when she couldn't 100% control her abilities, so. Like I said, it's a beautiful episode. Like I said, it's a bit depressing. Was not expecting that depressing element with the whole Kenny murder situation. And obviously the creepy teacher situation. But, like, overall, like, the aspect of, like, this being a focus of, like, building this relationship, I do appreciate what they've done, And And obviously it's a reflection of that bond, showing that over these past 10 years, that bond has only grown stronger, that they are that much closer, and it's almost hard to believe, especially when you look at them back then, really couldn't stand each other, and look at them now. They had their moments, but they still obviously love each other deeply, and it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. That's all I can say about it. So, like I said, I am very interested to see what goes down in the next episode going forward. It's like a very nice, much like Lucifer this week, it seems like this episode was kind of a very one-off. Obviously, it's like a very character building arc, more so than I feel like Lucifer's thing is kind of its own thing, but this is kind of like, it's like, no, these are progressing our characters forward and, seeing how they face the future, so. Side note too, I also appreciate those lines about like, oh yeah, Superman took down like some bald dude, like Lucifer. It's like, isn't that the bald dude who's like super rich? And then Kara starts fangirling out like, yeah, oh yeah, I heard he did this and that, and it's like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, I just thought he was pretty cool. Yeah, he's wearing his underwear on the outside. It's like, no respect. That's so mean and messed up. Funny and true, sure, but still, come on, that's like one of Earth's top heroes you're making fun of like that. It's like, he's an awesome, and Kara's probably like, oh, that sucks. So, I don't know, just a little extra thing to it that I love, so. And now moving on to this week's episode of The Gifted. Okay, a lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Obviously, the first thing I want to focus on is the whole Marcos situation. We have him reluctantly working with Carmen again, obviously lying to Lorna, who eventually found out, but we'll kind of get there soon enough. Marcos acts like he doesn't want to be there, but Carmen feel like she knows him more so than anyone, because we also cut to like 3 years ago when Marcos first met Lorna and John, and they kind of pulled him away from that cartel life. And in this instant, he never had to actually hurt anybody. It was just him basically having to blow up a shipment of drugs. Basically, I think it's from like the Russians. So it's like a competition thing. It's like, oh, they're trying to ship drugs. That's our territory. So trying to screw them over. It also seems like she actually has a mutant on her side too. One who seems like he can either, I guess, freeze time, because it didn't look like it was slowed down. It was more like freezed. But it also seems like he can isolate it too. I don't know whether he has the power to make it spread further or whether or not it's purely a isolated ability. But nevertheless, it led to Marcos like blowing up the place, blowing up the drugs and everything. And you see that smile across his face. Kind of, because the sad thing is you see that Carmen does know him. She knew that he'd be excited about it. She knew the moment she got him to do this job, he'd come back. In some twisted sense, I do think this is Carmen trying to get him back, not just for the cartel, but for herself. Because in her mind, she's like, the only reason why he left to go with the Mutant Underground isn't because of that cause. He only left because of Lorna, which Lorna and Sonya came and saw this, which Sonya tried to be like, oh, we should help him. It's like, no. Lorna's like, he can save himself, because she saw like the way he acted, and Carmen coming up and kissing him. It's like, I was worried about you, thinking you kind of got mixed up in all of this. And it's like, here you are. And like I said, he was smiling about it. And it's sad, because it's like, you see, especially for Lorna, it's like, we're about to have a family and you're all doing this. Not only did you do this behind my back, which you can understand Marcos' situation to a certain extent. It's like, well, I don't want you involved in everything. It's like, I had, this is my way of paying back for the information she gave me, but it's kind of a deal with the devil, because it's like, now it's like, you do this one thing, but then it's going to turn into more and more and more until she gets you wrapped around her fingertips, because she wants you again. And I think that's easily where the episode leaves Marcos' story off. And like, it's her saying like, I'm glad to be working with you again. So it's like, the question is, Marcos, what will he do from here? And I honestly don't know. I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be a situation of him liking it. I thought it'd be like, okay, I'm done. Leave me alone. We're going to separate. And then she keeps trying to pull him back in. I thought that would be it. But I should have known something the moment they were drinking and she looked at him. It's like, she knew what buttons to press. She knew that she could get him again. So the question is, what will he do going forward? Because it's not even just about Lorna, which that's a big thing, but this is also about your child. But it is something he warned. He said that it was not going to be easy to pull him away from Carmen in particular. Once again, she knows him super well, because they kind of grew up together in this whole situation, and they were together for such a long time. This is like a world that Marcos grew up knowing since like being kicked out. This is like the closest thing he had to a family. So it's hard to break those ties. And it's just, I'm sure like Marcos was predisposed to that world for so long that it's just kind of ingrained to him and to a certain extent. So it turns into a situation that I think I don't necessarily believe it's in Marco's nature, but I do believe that maybe he believes that, and it's going to be hard to break away from that thought process. So I'm very interested to see where it goes on from here, especially Lorna. I was kind of hoping that her and Carmen would cross paths. I thought in actuality she would actually help, like, you know, Lorna would help sweep things up and get Marcos out of there as quickly as possible. So once again, we didn't see the aftermath of that, like, what was the conversation like. The fact is that she's texting him on the phone like that. It's just like I said, it comes down to what Marcos does. Because also, it's like, it says a lot, too, that he did lie about it. The fact of the matter is, if this was really about for Lorna's sake and their sake, you wouldn't have lied about it. You would have been like, all right, I got to do this. But when I'm back, like, you know, it says a lot. And not only from the very beginning, it's the moment you got back, you still lied to her face. That in itself speaks volumes, you know. So lying actually is kind of a theme in this episode, but I'll get to that soon enough. So, I'll get to it next. But it's just, it's kind of sad because it seemed like, you know, because obviously he loves Lorna. Like, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble if he didn't love her. Like, so, but it's that situation of, that, you know, was it just Warner that made Marcos come to be a part of the Mutant Underground, or was it more? Does he truly believe in this cause? I think he does, but I think he's starting to let Carmen get in his head, plus who he was back then. It's like having to face that ugly past, which, segueing into what I was just talking about, this episode also dealt with Wes and Lauren. In particular, it seems that, you know, Wes kind of has a bad past himself, which amongst that whole situation, personally, I'm okay with it, because everyone in the Mutant Underground has done some shady stuff. In his particular situation, it's that he conned a lot of people is what I think bothered him the most, Reed the most. Because you take someone like Carissa, she stole like food and stuff like that. That was purely for survival, but it's like you stole money from people, you conned people. Which for him, it's like he got mixed up in the wrong group, which, in all honesty, Wes is kind of an interesting reflection of Marcos to a certain extent like that. But it's like, the fact is Wes didn't tell anybody, and the fact is he didn't tell Lauren, which, to be fair, not everyone is comfortable explaining their past. Like, not everyone feels the need to, but the fact of the matter is, like, when you come to the Mutant Underground, you're supposed to tell everyone your truth. Like, they don't let in murderers or rapists or anyone that's done anything against other mutants, simply because it's like that way they bring only in like people who deserve to be there, you know. And if he had told them the truth, you know, I think he was just probably scared that they would turn him away, which, you know, once again, like, his crimes, like, they seem more like white collar. They don't seem necessarily like I said, murderous, or like he physically hurt someone. Yes, he hurt people, but it does seem like he is apologetic about it. Because the interesting thing is, this kind of put Reed in a particular situation. Obviously, he's a very protective dad, but he kind of enters, you know, prosecutor mode, which doesn't help Lauren, because it's like, and it's something Caitlin kind of taps into, she needs her dad, not a prosecutor, because this wasn't their life. It was a life that was kind of thrust upon them, like finding out their children are mutant. They weren't it's like, I thought I'd kind of be shooing away boys and worrying about curfews and stuff like that. I had no idea I'd be worried about all this. But it's because that prosecutor aspect of him is what kept Lorna from telling her parents the truth in those 3 years that she felt like she needed to hide. But that whole situation is also why she's kind of pissed at Wes, because it's like, you make it seem like you're so proud of your abilities that, you know, I shouldn't have been hiding myself, but here you are, like, you were using your powers to just get rich. Well, once again, it's totally plausible that he did just kind of like get mixed up in the wrong crew. It was like an act of survival. Like, he was with them because it was the only way he could survive, because he was on his own, because it was after he got his parent. Because I thought that, I thought that was particular saying that Dr. Campbell wanted him. I thought that's what that whole situation was about. Or rather, like, Sentinel Service wanted him in particular, because it was like, no, it seems like they're picking and choosing which mutants they get, which could particularly mean something going forward. Because Wes eventually, like, well, when it's all said and done, Wes is forgiven because he ends up open, because it's something Reed just like, ultimately, I didn't say anything to anybody. What you have to do is tell them the truth yourself. Yeah, you either don't say anything or you tell them the truth and risk getting kicked out. But like, ultimately, the choice is yours. Because for Reed, it's like, yeah, things have changed, but he always believes in like doing the right thing. Like, if something's wrong, you have to suffer the consequences for it. It's gotten a little, like I said, that whole aspect has gotten a little hazy because now it involves his children, but he still believes that. Wes did it, but they didn't kick him out, but he is on a run right now. And immediately my brain goes, does that mean they might get Wes eventually? Because the whole plan, it seems that Campbell has in store is like, okay, let's get some mutants that we have under our control who we can just like snap our fingers and basically kick them in. They're like sleeper agents essentially. So I don't know whether it's like they're normal and docile, they're normal cells until they activate and then they go all like zombie mode, or is it like, or is the whole point to make them appear to be normal, that while the entire time they're zombie mode, but it doesn't really like kick in until they're activated, you know? So I'm curious to see like how that's handled going forward, because that seems like a big push for the next episode. Because we definitely seen, because obviously Jace, once again, is still being pushed by revenge, because we see him kind of hearing Grace in his head and hearing from his wife about her being gone, and it's just like, what Sonya did to his head, it's still there, and it's messing with him, and it's affecting his judgment. That's why he's going so heavy and so hard. And now a lady who works with the DOJ is like, hey, you need to calm down with this. It's like, yeah, you might not like these guys. They might be, you're trying to put them as terrorists. They're believed to be terrorists. We don't have any factual information. At the end of the day, they're Americans. But then you have Jace being like, well, they gave up their right. They're treating themselves as something outside of Americans, yet we're letting the American system protect them. It's like, the fact that you saying that kind of shows his prejudice, because it's like, and it kind of shows you an interesting thing where the government, it's like, there are people within the government who are sensible. Yes, mutants are still treated the way they are, but even they're like, they deserve the fullest extent of the law to protect them, as they have rights. And that's something Reed kind of represented too. It's like Reed didn't go out of his way to persecute mutants in particular, but it was a situation of like, hey, like, you broke the law, this is the way the law is, you know, kind of like how he was kind of stuck in his ways about the whole situation. So, but Campbell used one of his mutants to kind of basically burst a blood vessel. And it's like, oh my God, it looks like she's having a stroke. I'm a doctor. Let me check her out. And Jace, it seems like he is starting to have reluctancy about the situation, because it's like Jace was willing to go to a certain extent, but to go that far, the whole situation bought him and Campbell more time. But now Campbell himself is Jace himself is starting to see he's working with a devil, because it also seems like the Underground ended up finding out that this whole like controlling mutants thing isn't a government funded thing. It's not like Sentinel Services. Like, Campbell is connected to this group known as Trask Industries, which sounds so familiar to me. I don't remember where I know that from. It sounds so freaking familiar. I don't know whether it's like an X-Men cartoon thing. I swear it's a Spider-Man thing too, but I don't remember. I mean, to be fair, like, Spider-Man and the X-Men kind of crossed over like back in the day. Specifically, I mean, I'm sure that was like well before like the split where Fox ended up getting Marvel. But I mean, in particular, the mutants in the Fantastic Four, which is kind of interesting because I forget that the Fantastic Four aren't mutants. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to me when I think about that. Like, oh yeah, the Fantastic Four are just kind of they're not mutants because like their powers come from it comes from a mutation, but not of like the same evolutionary standard as like every other mutant on Earth. So it was just kind of an interesting thing I just thought about. Because it's always like, oh yeah, because Marvel is like, Fox says the mutant has mutants. Oh, and the Fantastic Four is like, I always forget there's that separation, but nevertheless. So maybe it's something Spider-Man related, but I don't know, that was just kind of interesting to me. Because it also begs the question too, it's like, well, what is Spider-Man? Because, you know, he's not a mutant because he's not part of like Fox. He's not a Fox property. He's a Sony and Marvel property. That's just, I don't know. Why get all technical with that? That's beside the point in this whole situation. But like I said, it just sounds so familiar. It turns out that Reed's dad actually worked for that company, but apparently they shut down 6 years ago, supposedly. But seems that might not, I mean, it seems like Reed's like, I don't know. Like, we don't really know what his relationship is like with his dad. I mean, we saw his mom. We've met his mom in the show, but we've never gone beyond that. Like, what is up with his dad? Does that mean he's not on good terms with his dad or something like that? And why is a group that's supposed to have been shut down 6 years ago still working in the background? Because it's like, it's more of a military funded thing. So I guess like the government has a little oversight, but they kind of do their own thing. Because the moment the DOJ lady found, wait, Dr. Campbell's working with you, it's kind of like he's kind of stepping outside of his own zone. So, but as we've seen that when it comes down to what he wants or what he needs to do, he's willing to cross any line because he's working like Jace is just a means to an end to him. Like to him, he doesn't care about this whole mutant situation. He's getting something out of this, like an experiment. In particular, we know that he wants Andy and Lauren. So this is just a means to an end. If he helps Jace take them down, then hey, that's just either more mutants for him to experiment on, and plus it also gets him closer to Lauren and Andy. But like I said, I'm curious to see what Jace will do going forward, because even Dr. Campbell's like, oh yeah, your daughter would be so proud of you. And so, like I said, that's still like I think he knows what buttons to press to really like get into Jace's head and keep him fueled and mad and make him go, okay, this is for my daughter. But once again, it's like he's acting out of a personal vendetta. Like that's what this all stems from. At the very least, from the beginning, it did seem like he was very lawful, but now that, you know, Sonya got in his head, and now we're seeing the negative side of what it's like when Sonya kind of messes around with your memories. Like if she couldn't fix it, which begs a question: do you think that they did something to that guard? They ended up finding out where that cartel guard, because they ended up finding out where Carmen and Marcos went. But I'm curious to know, did they kind of plant something in his head or something? Probably not. Probably just got the information they needed and bounced. But I know that it's a very interesting development. It seems like that's probably going to be something going forward too, like Reed confronting like probably some dark aspects of his family with this whole Trask Industries thing. And for him, it's going to be even more interesting because it's his dad that's involved, and his own grandchildren, or like his own children, are mutants. And it's like, what does that say for his family, for them to be involved in this whole situation? So maybe that's something we'll kind of get a little insight into in the next episode. But another part of this episode is we have John going after Clarice, which you have Sonya be like, wait, what? You're doing what? It's like, we need her. But you see it kind of bothering Sonya to a little bit, to a certain extent. But I guess it's like Clarice decided to leave on her own, so it's just like, leave it at that. But she left because of a particular reason, so John ends up going after her and apologizing, which Clarice doesn't necessarily want to help him because she's got her own stuff to do, but John ultimately helps her. It all leads her back to a foster home she was in, but sadly she ends up finding out that Sentinel Services hit that foster home, and because it protected mutants, like they couldn't really live normal lives, obviously, but it's kind of interesting too, because she ended up saying like, oh yeah, I got those other kids and I brought them here. So it might have been a situation where Clarice and some other people she was around, like around that age, she ended up bringing them there specifically, or maybe given enough time, she brought more mutants there at one point in time. But she ended up leaving, I guess, ultimately because it's like, well, it wasn't the life she wanted, especially at the time she was a teenager. You want more freedom, but it's like, it's just a situation of like, well, they were trying to keep them safe, you know. They had the best of intentions. They were just trying to ensure everyone stayed safe. So you had to make a little sacrifice. You can't live the life you want to, but you stay safe. So, but also it's just like, it kind of also shows you just kind of how far Sentinel Services will go. Not even just a situation with Jace, because a lot of people are like, no matter how, like, because you can't get unbiased opinions with this whole situation, especially after the whole like July 15th situation. Like, mutants are already kind of looked at badly in people's eyes anyway, but this is, you know, it's like, oh, you're unnatural, you're some freak or something. But even more so after that incident, that's what pushes Jace. But who's to say the same thing doesn't apply to other people? You can make the argument like, oh, we're doing this for a lawful, in like in the eyes of the law, but like, those were people who died. Like, maybe they fought back, but still, it's just, it's sad that people are hunted down. And even in the DOJ, it's like, oh, we have to handle things very legally. So like I said, there's like an extent of like, you can understand that there is some reasonableness in the law of like, hey, we are handling, it may not be the best situation for mutants, but we are the ones handling it better, but not everyone's following that code, as we can see with Sentinel Services. So, but it's just kind of an interesting development. This has led Clarice to come back, because it's like, the fight might not have been mine before, but now it's mine, you know? So it's like, she's kind of stepped into it, because it's like, it led to people that she cared about getting hurt. And these were people who were just, you know, trying to help people, and they got hurt in the process. Not just hurt, killed, you know, so. But you did see an interesting thing at the end of the episode, as the episode was coming to an end, like what that whole situation is. You saw like them kind of, John and Clarice going separate ways when they came back, and his Sonya comes up and kisses him. But you see the look on John's face, like he's developing feelings for Clarice. It wasn't, because he said it last time, I was like, it's complicated. And I wonder how that's going to go, because we saw that Sonya was like, oh, we got to put things on hold. Well, John was like, we got to put things on hold because we're working together. But then she was like, no, we don't need to. Then you had the whole situation with Clarice having stuff in her head about John. But then it's like, you know, in her mind, it's not real because it technically isn't. But now you see that John is having feelings for her. And it's like, it's super complicated, you know? It's like, because it's also like, almost like, well, you said you and Sonya can't have a relationship because you're working together, but now it's like, obviously you possibly have feelings for Clarice, and it kind of gets the whole situation complicated. That's a love triangle situation just waiting to happen. So overall, a very great episode. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode with all the stuff, especially like now that Sentinel Services has got these mutants under their belt that they can send in to kind of go nuts if they need to. Part of me immediately thinks like we might cross paths with the girl that Lorna met in prison, the girl with the white skin. I think she might kind of be a part of it. I was making sure to look out for her, but I didn't see anyone, so that might not be the case. But I feel like she just seemed like she seemed too almost, I guess it was more so to be like, okay, here's a mutant lady that, you know, Lorna could bond with, but obviously she kept her distance, so we never really got to learn much about her in the time Lorna was there. So I just get the feeling that might pop up, like she might end up being one of the ones under their control. Once again, the whole zombie thing, we don't know. At this point in time, you won't be able to tell, like, there's no clear-cut sign of probably who's being controlled and who's not. So I'm sure that's, you know, definitely going to play a big part next episode with this new development, because it's like, you're basically going to be leading undercover agents right back to your facility. So, like I said, I'm so interested to see where this goes. The Clarice and John Clarice, John, and Sonya situation, Lorna, Carmen, and Marco situation, kind of a love triangle situation all on its own. It's more of all those situations are super complicated in their own ways, but very similar ways too. And obviously, like, what future there is for Lauren and Wes, if there's going to be one. And will he come back as someone under control as well or not? Like I said, a lot of that stuff, we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.